Welcome to Back on the Broomstick,
a modern witch's spoken word grimoire,
where two witchy friends from way back are reconnecting to their pagan roots after a long period of mundanity.
We're rewalking the path of the wise and trying out all the latest spells, rituals, and magical theory in today's witchcraft and pagan practices.
So grab your wand and your incense,
your cauldron and your crystals,
and join us
as we get
back on the broomstick.
Hi, and welcome to Back on the Broomstick. I'm Layla, and this Samhain episode, we're talking about embracing the shadow sides of ourselves. The dark half of the year is the perfect time to reclaim the parts of us that aren't pretty and don't fit into neat little boxes. If you were ever taught or felt that you had to stifle your righteous rage, quiet your emotions because they were too much, or make yourself smaller in any way, then embracing your shadow can be healing too. And at the end of this episode, we'll give you a spell calling on the deities of the dark to wield that righteous anger.
And I'm Chelle, and some people think that this type of shadow work is scary and unsettling and something to be leery of. Yes. Shadow work can be deep, it can be hard, it can be scary, but out of all of those things, it is 110% necessary. So let's talk about some righteous rage.
And a lot of people think that shadow work is about healing trauma, healing your pain. And it is. It's about coming to terms with those parts of yourself that are hurt, that are damaged, or maybe that you don't like.
There's other facets of it too.
Yeah. Part of shadow work can be claiming that shadow, that can be owning those parts of us that maybe you were told were too much, but aren't really.
Sometimes you are going to find yourself in raging situations. We all do. It doesn't mean you want to be in a rage, but you are. And you have to kind of learn how to flow through that, maneuver through that, use that rage in a productive manner, and find what you can glean from that rage and glean from the goddesses of rage.
Yes, absolutely. Working with dark goddesses absolutely helped me to embrace that rage and to not shy away from it. And I think that this time of year, Samhain, the third harvest, this is the witch's new year. What better time to embrace that dark than the dark half of the year?
I got a question for you.
Sure, what?
Wouldn't it be more fun to do shadow work in like March during the spring equinox where you're not so down in the dumps? I feel like you're doing shadow work when you can't really go outside anymore. It's getting cold. It's getting dreary. Doesn't that just kind of play into the angry part? I would think for me, I would quell my angry side with warm, sunny days.
Yeah, summer probably would be a better time to do that. But we're not talking about softening that anger. We're talking about actually embracing the anger. Sometimes anger and being pissed off is the place that you should be in. So maybe coming to terms with the dark and the dark half of the year is part of embracing that. You don't have to be afraid of the dark. The dark doesn't have to be looked at as bad or scary or making your anger worse. Sometimes the dark can be healing and comforting and help you to sort through why you're angry, because maybe you have every reason to be angry. Sometimes you go out into the woods, into the wet, rainy, dark weather, and maybe it matches your mood and you're just kind of walking out there with it and feeling nature mirroring how you're feeling. I'm not sure. A lot of us like Halloween, right? A lot of us decorate our houses for Halloween or witchy all year round because we find solace in that. We find kinship maybe in the dark.
That could be. It could be the thin veil. You feel that you have that connection with your ancestors, with your spirit guides that can kind of maybe better help you with that thin veil to work through that anger, that rage, some of those feelings, some of those obstacles. So it could be a veil thinning thing where you have your people with you. Everybody's around you, helping you.
Feels almost easier to embrace this time of year, I guess. And I'm glad you brought up the summer because we as humans and as witches, as magical people, we know that who we are is made up of dark and light, right? If you want to use that type of analogy, we're shadow and sun, I guess, in some ratio, right?
Right.
And as witches, as magical practitioners, I think that sometimes we lean too heavily into one or the other.
Maybe because it's the trend, maybe because
Yeah.
it's what's cool at the moment.
Maybe you don't have enough light, or maybe you're too nice when you should be angry. Me. Finding that balance, witches should be comfortable on both sides of that spectrum, I think.
Oh my God, I just realized something. I've always been the shadow, you've always been the light. No wonder we're so good together.
Very good point. That's true. You've always been the Hekate to my Cerridwen. And like you, Hekate is anger. She's the avenger. She brings justice, and her anger is righteous and purposeful. But she's also the guider of souls. She will walk you with her torch to the underworld. And that's kindness right there. And Cerridwen, she's the mother. She's got the cauldron, the awen, the power of magic. But she chased Gwion down and did not let him go because she felt that he betrayed her by drinking the potion she had made for her son. So, just like those goddesses, there's light and dark in everything and in everyone. And just because someone on the surface seems like they're angry all the time doesn't mean that inside they might not be one of the nicest people you know. And just because someone is smiling on the outside doesn't mean that they won't wrap up some righteous fury and smack you upside the head with it. But yeah, I guess that kind of works. And back when we were searching and we were seeking and we were doing that year and a day with different goddesses, I found that as much as dark goddesses, as much as darker deities felt challenging, they felt like a lot of work. They felt like dealing with the angry people in my life that I didn't really want to deal with. They also felt very empowering.
Right.
A lot of these goddesses are painted in not so pretty lights. If you read some of the, say, stories about Baba Yaga, the folklore about the Slavic goddess, folk character, Baba Yaga, she's pretty chaotic and she's not always necessarily what you might call good.
I've spent the last 3 decades being dedicated to Hekate, so you ain't telling me nothing I don't know, sister. But
Right.
if you've noticed all this time, I've always been kind of drawn to those darker goddesses, my
Mhm.
stint with Pele, the Morrigan, Hekate. I've put a lot of work into dark goddesses over the years, and I'm not sure what the draw is, but I feel like I've always been drawn more to
Mhm.
that darker, that pleasure and pain, I like to call it. Like with Hekate, she will embrace you and love you like a mother, and she will whoop your ass like your grandma would. I mean, like, there's something about working with these dark goddesses that gives you an idea of where am I at and how do I get to the next step and work through what I need to work through to get to that next step. I would say sometimes the shadow work and the darker goddesses work on yourself.
It's hard sometimes for people to face these deities. Maybe because it is hard, like you were just saying. And sometimes it's because we don't like what we see. We're told that, say, like take Lilith. Lilith is a good one. She's a demon. She's a demon from ancient Judaic Hebrew texts. She also, some people think, goes back to Mesopotamia, Sumeria, Babylon. But in most of those stories, if not all of those stories, she's a demon. And in modern day, she's a goddess of feminine power. But her story goes back to the creation myth in the Bible. In writings called the Alphabet of Ben Sirah, written in about 700 CE, her story is that she was the first wife of Adam. Lilith was created at the same time that their God created Adam from the dirt. They were both created as equals from the dirt. Whereas later, Adam's second wife is created from his rib so that she would be subservient to him. Lilith is created as his equal, and he doesn't like that. And she didn't want to submit to him. So when he wanted her to act like a quote unquote traditional submissive woman, she said, F you, spoke the name of God, and flew away to live her own life. But then she's vilified. She's a demon. She's a slut. She sleeps around. She has demon babies. She kills children. She's jealous of women. She seduces men in the night. But some of that's probably conflated, right? With ideas of proper behavior or what is or isn't proper.
Right, right. Exaggerations.
If they're afraid of sexuality, a woman who claims her own sexuality and won't be submissive is scary. So that's why goddesses like Lilith, we're kind of reevaluating those stories. We're looking at them with different, more modern eyes, right? To kind of reclaim those darker parts of ourselves, I guess, or quote unquote darker parts of ourselves.
Same with Pele, the Hawaiian goddess. A lot of people look at Pele as a goddess of destruction and of fire and mayhem. But sometimes with destruction, that can bring anew. Sometimes you need to burn away for regrowth. And I think maybe that the biggest theme with some of these goddesses is, similar to the burn away thing with Pele. You got to shed away all that is there, good, bad, and ugly, to get to where the real work is.
That's like the theme of Samhain, right? It's the death of everything. It's the death and then the rebirth. And that's
Right.
absolutely what Pele is. She is that volcano, that destructive fire, but that's where you see the most fertile soil.
That gives way for rebirth. Yes, it
Yeah.
gives way for rebirth. The destruction part is the hard part, the scary part, the unknown. Because let's face it, as humans, we are afraid of the unknown. It's that destruction, it's that burning away that we're afraid of, and sometimes forget the rebirth after it. Kind of like the
Yeah.
phoenix in the fire. You have to burn away to rise from the flames like the phoenix.
And there's a lot to be learned from the stories of Baba Yaga. She teaches you that you don't have to make yourself smaller or sweeter or easier to deal with in order to be your full, magical, wise, worthy, amazing self. Your truth, who you are, no matter how weird or rough around the edges it is powerful. And Baba Yaga might be scary, but she's honorable. She honors those who show her respect, that are clever, that have that inner strength. She has boundaries and she's not afraid to enforce them. And that's part of her lesson. Vasilisa, I think is her name. It's like the Russian Cinderella. She's the young girl with a stepmother, two stepsisters, and is tasked with impossible chores, right? But she's got this little magic doll. And she has to go out in the forest and get some fire from Baba Yaga. And Baba Yaga, she's this old woman, right? She looks very, very old, very, very skinny, and her house roams the forest on chicken legs. And she's got this big, huge stove inside her house, and she's a cannibal. All her stories, she's usually like a supporting character, which is also kind of mysterious. But anyway, when people find her, she usually gives them tasks. And if they're polite and do the tasks, she'll help you. But if you're not polite, she'll eat you. So she,
Sounds like me on a Tuesday.
right? Pretty much. So Vasilisa goes there and does the chores and does good by Baba Yaga's standards. So Baba Yaga gives her a skull that's glowing to be this light that she was supposed to go get. So she brings it back to her house, takes the skull out, and it promptly burns her stepmother and her two stepsisters alive and burns down the whole house, leaving Vasilisa alive but alone.
Well, it freed her from her despairing situation.
Yeah. So there's Baba Yaga, right? She's very chaotic,
Drastic.
drastic. She can be good, she can be evil, but she's usually pretty fair. But it's scary to confront these ideas, these big things like Pele's fire, Lilith's sexuality, or anger, or Baba Yaga's exacting justice. Those can be hard to face, but there's good lessons there.
Like Hekate with the crossroads. Sometimes you just need to make a choice, and sometimes we don't want to make choices, but here we are. You got to make a choice.
A lot of times it's easy to shy away from the darker parts of ourselves, even if it can be helpful. We don't want to be angry. We don't want to be scared. We don't want to feel these uncomfortable emotions. And sometimes working with these dark goddesses, even though, like Hekate, they might kick your ass about it, they will also hold your hand and help you to grow that strength, to find that strength within you, to move forward. But what I don't like is part of that shying away of that darkness is I have to mention we were sent a goddess oracle deck not too long ago, and I can't remember the name of it, so they don't have to be shamed at the moment. But I saw the depiction of Lilith as,
Oh, I
very,
remember you were angry. You were
yeah,
angry.
I'm still angry about it. I'm still kind of pissed about it. Now, one of Lilith's qualities is sexuality. She is unashamedly, unabashedly sexual. She is not, in any lore or legends I can find, in any way a sex kitten.
A sex kitten, Lilith.
No, no. And this depiction of her had her in pink, cutesy lingerie, blonde, laying back on pillows,
Like Barbie?
pretty much in like a Barbie sex kitten pose.
I feel like that's blasphemous.
It really is. And I have nothing wrong with blonde Barbies in sex kitten poses and pink lingerie.
But that's not Lilith.
Yeah, you shouldn't shy away from that. Baba Yaga is ugly. She's still a very cool, very powerful goddess. Lilith can be mean and cruel and also very sexual. That doesn't mean that she's a pink Barbie fluffy bunny. And I don't think we should ignore these dark sides because that makes us ignore the dark sides in ourselves. And I'm not saying you need to go eat people that don't do your chores properly like Baba Yaga, but it's okay to be mad at them if they don't do what they're supposed to.
There's definitely a fine line between taking it and not taking it. And I think sometimes working with some of these darker goddesses gives you a better sense of when to take it and when to not take it.
They definitely can help you find your voice. And I think I got a little distracted earlier talking about, my journey with dark deities, but as someone who had a lot of trauma to work through, I've found very much that Lilith and her fuck off attitude very much helped me to work through some of that. And a lot like when we talked to Ness Bosch in a recent episode, she spoke of people who had survived sexual abuse or sexual trauma very often get tattoos of Medusa, who, like Lilith, not exactly a goddess, but has kind of become a goddess and is a symbol of feminine power and of overcoming these obstacles.
I just think that this time of year with Samhain approaching and kind of that last harvest, the theme of having that connection with your ancestors. So yeah, working with some of the darker aspects of the goddess is a great thing, but I also think at this time of year you incorporate some ancestor work into that shadow work. Sometimes the people that know us best are the family that we've had that have come and gone, friends that we've had that come and gone. And it's almost like having a conversation with an old friend or having a conversation with your grandma that passed and being like, hey, grandma, how have I been fucking off this year? And what should I be doing to, get back on track? Or I don't see any problems in my life that I need to work on. What do you think, grandma?
Another one, too, with the ancestors is not just what problems do I have to work on, but what am I okay to be angry about? What is it okay for me to be enraged about? Like maybe you want to reach out to your fifth great grandma and say, I'm having trouble standing up for myself at work. I need to tap into that rage that you felt when you were trying to start a
Whatever.
homestead or, break off from your abusive husband or whatever. I need to tap into some of that ancestral anger so that I can have the courage to stand up for myself, and it's embracing that part of the shadow, not just finding the parts of you that are broken and bad, but embracing the parts of you that other people might say is too much or too angry so that you've kind of stifled.
And calling on the strength of your ancestors to kind of
Yes.
help you mentally prepare yourself to get yourself through that working. Gather the army, get everybody standing shoulder to shoulder while you work through this.
Yeah, and this time of year, it's so easy to do if you're in a meditation or if you're doing a spell or if you're just journaling or a tarot pull for the day. Reach out to your ancestors, ask them, say, hey, I'm angry with a friend of mine. I'm having trouble with this relationship and I'm not speaking my mind. I'm not speaking my truth in this particular situation. You can ask them for the strength or for the words to be able to say that. And that can help you kind of bolster your own emotions and your own strength.
Now, how would you suggest that someone who has never worked with a darker deity, how would you suggest they start that journey? I know with me, Hekate found me. I didn't find her. I swear. I even tried to run and she chased me down. But what would be your top tip for someone who has not worked with one of these types of goddesses or with one of these deities that would be a good first step?
Well, first of all, approach with respect would be the first step, and that always involves education. So if there's a deity that you feel is reaching out to you or chasing you down, Or if there's just someone that you're interested in, if you feel like you want to work with Kali or Sekhmet, you want to work with the Dagda or Cernunnos or Anubis or Hades, Persephone, any of these dark deities, any deity, for whatever reason, whether they're calling you, you're calling them, you're just interested, is research. Research as much as you can. Find knowledgeable authors on the topic and read as much as you can from them. Check out their papers, check out their workshops, check out their books, journal about it, meditate about it. I know that UPG, unverified personal gnosis, is not necessarily something you should write a book about, but it's very valid for your own personal experiences. If you are, say, when I first started working with Lilith, I started reading as much as I could. And she's difficult to read on because a lot of the papers are very academic. They're very textbook. They're very thick. They're very difficult to get through. And there's a lot of modern stuff that's very interesting. But reading all of it is really important. Learn about the culture, the people, the religion they came from. But I also at the same time started meditating and asking for her to talk to me. I know mugwort is not an herb that you can use, but mugwort is good for dreaming, and it's also a good herb for working with your subconscious, working with dark deities, working with that inner voice, that inner strength. If you don't have mugwort, you can use, I like copal, frankincense for working with spirits, something to open up your third eye. But meditate with it, write about it, start writing down what you're feeling. If you feel like they said something to you, write it down. And yes, that's unverifiable personal gnosis, which is basically your own personal magical experiences with deity. And you should write those down because they can have a lot of meaning for you and they can definitely deepen and strengthen your working with that deity.
Some people don't have the choice but to just do, the UPG because, as you remember back in the day, I mean, to find a book about Hekate, shit, I might as well tried to get inside the pyramids myself. Like it wasn't happening. There just wasn't a lot of books about Hekate. I think when kind of the publishing books thing became popular in this genre, people shied away from some of those darker deities.
Oh, certainly the publishing company absolutely did. They were afraid of
Yeah,
being labeled Satanists.
Satanists, yep. And there was books like the book that's not called 10,000 Goddesses. And, it was books like that where you would just get little snippets on certain deity because that's all that you could find out there. But nowadays, thankfully, that tide has turned. Like in the little awesome shop I work at, we've got 5, 6 books about, maybe 7 books about Hekate. And 30 years ago, you wouldn't have found 6, 7 books about Hekate in a
Yeah.
bookstore. And the same can be said for Kali and for Lilith. There's still some of, like you're not going to go find 150 books on Pele at your local pagan store, but I think it's coming around. It's coming around more so than it used to. The information is getting put out there in a more easily accessible way.
I would say that it's actually done a complete 180 from the 90s because now everywhere you look, it's Hecate. Hecate is everyone's favorite goddess. You ask 3 witches, all 3 of them will say, yes, Hecate is my goddess. And Lilith is rapidly becoming popular as well. So I would say that it's like the rise of the dark deities right now, the rise of the dark goddesses, because people are feeling that rage.
Embracing that energy.
Yeah, and when I'm talking about goddess energy and feminine power, that's in all of us. I don't just mean women. I mean that feminine energy rage, that goddess rage, that earth, moon, mother rage that everybody feels at some time or another. So when I say that, don't think I'm just talking about women. I'm talking about all of us.
I think that this is an important task for folks who have not really kind of embraced this side, this darker side, that maybe your homework for this Samhain season is find a dark goddess and do some research.
Find how she relates to you. Find those correlations between the dark parts of yourself that you need to strengthen and the dark deity that matches that.
Because it's not all about working through anger and working through rage. Like you just said, sometimes it's about strengthening, basically strengthening our inner core. When you're doing those weird exercises at your occupational therapist, you're strengthening your core. Sometimes working with the darker goddesses strengthens your spiritual inner core.
Absolutely. And it can strengthen your confidence. It can strengthen your ability to voice your complaints, to create boundaries. And sometimes you need to tap into that in order to have that strength to do those things. And working with your rage doesn't always mean stifling it or turning it to happiness or joy. Sometimes it means wielding it properly.
Exactly. Keywords, wielding it properly.
Right? And now, have there been times in your life when you have reached for a dark goddess to help you not transform one of these dark emotions, but maybe to help you wield it properly?
A lot of times, sometimes I tend to be a little on the, we won't call it the angrier side, but maybe. Yeah, there's been plenty of times where with my kids, angry about somebody getting bullied, angry about the way someone was treated, and you can't just go out and be all angry with people, so you have to kind of wield that rage. Hekate has gotten me through some mothering moments.
I think it's interesting because for you, working with, say, Hekate helps you to temper that rage and make it more laser focused rather than
Right.
wild and chaotic.
Right.
And for me, working with Hekate helps me instead of stifling that wild, chaotic rage and holding it in and holding it back, she helps me to direct it where it's actually supposed to be directed and to accomplish what should be done.
Exactly, exactly. Where my unwielded rage gets more laser focused. Exactly.
So it's accomplishing the same thing. Instead of yours being wild and chaotic and burning you and everything around you to the ground, and mine being wild and chaotic and burning me to the ground, we are then able to direct it properly.
Correct.
That's one of the ways of looking at this whole dark season and working with the shadow self around Samhain. It's a time to celebrate those dark characteristics, find out how they can work for you instead of against you. Think of your journey through the dark half of the year as a way to honor the dark half of yourself, the sensual, emotional, powerful witch within. Let go of the negative traits, the fear, the self doubt, the criticisms that try to make you less than. Think of it like Inanna going down into the darkness and giving these things up. She was not giving those things up just to sacrifice them. She was shedding them to then reclaim her power. Kind of like what you said at the beginning with Pele, that destructive force is scary, but it has creation at the end of it. All of this has that same positive goal.
See, you just said something that sparked a thought. You said giving things up as if you were giving up a bad habit. Definitely a good time of year to give things up, don't get me wrong, but I kind of look at it more as a not giving it up, but I think the cliche term right now is getting rid of what no longer serves me. Kind of just burning away
Yes.
the bullshit, cutting the ties of all the bullshit of the year. Because again, this is the witch's new year, so we got so many New Years coming up in the next few months. But for the witch's new year, I look at this as kind of a reset of my energy, cutting all those ties around me. Like, say I was in a little circular tube, cutting all the ropes that have tied me for the year that no longer serve me, shedding the bullshit. And this is a good time of year to shed the bullshit. And sometimes you need the goddess to kick you in the ass to shed the bullshit.
And sometimes you need that fire of anger to burn those cords away, to burn that
Yes,
bullshit away. And you need to embrace that.
to cut those ties that you're done
Yeah.
with for the year.
I find when I'm able to direct that energy and I'm able to find out why I'm angry, why I'm raging, and work through that, I can very often direct it to get something done. Maybe I'm mad at myself and I need to get a project done or whatever, but finding that path through is often much more productive. So, Samhain, the whole holiday kind of mirrors that same idea. It's Persephone going down and the earth dying, and then she's transformed and comes back up in the spring. The whole season is saying that go down into the dark, be in the dark, be comfortable in the dark, and find your own light, and then come back up into the springtime. And I love how the season itself is kind of mirroring that same personal inner work that you can do right now.
Be comfortable with the work that needs to be done because you're doing it no matter what.
You and I are not fans of the cold. We're not fans of the
We're
wet,
not. You'd think we were born in Hawaii.
right? I wish. So
I wish.
I do miss the desert. And I had someone ask not too long ago, just quick side tangent. I did have someone ask that hasn't listened to all of our episodes, that doesn't realize that I lived in California. But, the desert is different. Being in that dry, hot space this time of year, I know the fall is not cold, but it still gets dark earlier out there. It still gets chillier. Your surroundings, your land still change this time of year. So even though it's not necessarily as much leaves falling and cold snow and all of that we have on the West Coast, watch how it changes. See how the dark changes the area where you live. And maybe that can be part of you exploring the dark part of you, is explore the dark season in your area. What does it look like on your land, where your land spirits dwell? No matter where you live, or maybe especially if you live somewhere that doesn't exactly match the Northern Hemisphere, Western European version of the seasons, maybe one of your magical workings for the next wheel of the year from Samhain to Samhain could be keeping track of what each season brings to your land. How does Samhain look where you live? What do Yule and Imbolc look like? What does the increasing dark or daylight feel like in your area? How does the changing seasons that you see around you affect your magic? What's growing in your area? What's dying? How is nature reacting in that season? How do you react in that season? Keep track of every tick of the wheel. And now, after a year, you have a very personal, very powerful connection to your land, to your season, to the energies and the spirits that are around you right now. The magic that resides in that season where you dwell. Just quick side note on that one. So it doesn't look the same for everybody, and it doesn't look the same where we all live. Are there any things that you like to do for Samhain to honor the dark in your area, or to honor the darkness within yourself?
I like to spend my Samhain ritual time doing a lot of ancestor work. My ancestor altar is in process of being finished and put together, but I think this is always a good time to connect with my ancestors and kind of be like, all right, you saw how the last year went. What do we change? It's almost like asking, I feel like it's asking the people who are going to tell me the most truth on what I need to do. So it's a good, I find this a good time to kind of reflect with my ancestors on what do they think I need to shed away? What do they think I need to work on? What do they think my next phase should be in the coming year? So I do kind of rely this time of year a little bit more on the ancestor work as opposed to the Hekate work, because I kind of feel like she's hounded my ass about this all year long. So this time I kind of do the ancestor approach.
What does that look like when you redo your altar? Is that when you're doing that work?
It's honestly, it's almost like I sit down and have a conversation with my grandfather, and
So
he's
more of
like,
like a
look,
meditation?
I would say maybe more like a meditation. I'm not the greatest journaler, so that's not the direction I ever take it usually, unless it's tarot. But it's like having these conversations with my ancestors. And yeah, I guess using the altar is a conduit for that. Yeah, but it's having these conversations, and I guess a meditative state of where do you think I'm at? What do you think I need to shed away? What do you think I need to burn away? What do you think I've let lack in my boundaries, and kind of get my ancestors' perspective. But I think that's sometimes because I've never trusted my own perspective. So I almost feel like I need that affirmation from my ancestors to kind of remind me that I am doing all the right things, getting rid of, shedding these things from my life, or working on these aspects that I've maybe ignored or need to work on or need to delve into or have hid from or are scared of. Sometimes you can take that, swallow that pill a little easier if it's coming from an ancestor.
I also like to redo my ancestor altar this time of year. I'm a very basic ancestor altar bitch, I guess. This is very easy to do. This time of year, it's just easy to remember, so that helps. I've set it up on a high shelf. I actually completely rechanged where it goes. But this year, the other thing I'm doing to connect with my ancestors, and kind of like you, This year, I'm asking them for more help to access my voice and access my anger in healthy, productive, outward ways and not inward, destructive ways. So, what I've done this year is starting on Mabon, I picked a time. I recommend that it be sometime between 6, 7 o'clock. And the reason is because every night, or okay, let's be honest, almost every night. Uh, so every night at the same time, I've been doing a very short meditation and a very short journaling, talking to my ancestors and giving them space, basically reaching out to them, waiting for 10, 13 minutes and just journaling my impressions and saying thank you. But the reason I picked that time is because the days are getting shorter. At around that time, you can start to see it's darker. Every time you sit down to do that meditation at the exact same time, it's going to be a little bit darker. And especially this month, I'm noticing it really big. Like it's really
Yeah.
dark now when I'm doing this meditation. And when I started, it was bright daylight. And so that change in light of doing this exercise of reaching out to my ancestors at now it's sunset, but right around sunset and watching that light change as I reach to them every day has been very, very helpful. It's been very meditative, kind of helped me to get into that. I'm going inward. I'm going backwards. I'm going back to the dark. I'm going back to my ancestors. I'm going down to those roots. And so just kind of visually seeing that light change as I've been doing these just, quick, short little meditations each day has been a very nice way for me to connect with ancestors. And I found that I feel like I've gotten more energy and messages from people that aren't on my ancestor altar, if that makes sense, like
Oh,
unnamed ancestors that I don't necessarily know are
right,
coming
right.
to say hello when I've been doing this practice. So that's been very interesting for me.
I like that angle because I kind of do it more pointed to the ancestors I know, but I like your angle of, and then you're able to tap into the ancestors you don't know. I love that.
I have my known ancestor altar, which I absolutely love. So I cleaned that off and I'm redoing that. But this, I just kind of let it be free form. And that's just kind of how it ended up being. And I'm enjoying it. It's nice. Again, pick a time right around 6, 7 o'clock, somewhere in there, so that as the time goes on, you can see the light start to change.
Shell's future self is going to do that next Mabon.
You don't have to wait to start it next Mabon. You can still do it now. I just like the idea of a practice from Mabon to Samhain to honor my ancestors. But you can start it whenever you like and do it for however long you want. But yeah, great time of year to go within. And with everything that's going on right now, I think calling to these angry gods, these darker deities that give you permission and strength and maybe a little wisdom to wield that rage is important because I think stifling it or turning it inward is definitely not good, not healthy, not productive.
And, from a different perspective, if you are maybe an overly rage-filled person, which I've had my moments, this is a good time to learn how to kind of, like you said, laser focus that. And instead of being destructive to everything and all, kind of wielding that destruction into a positive good force, into good change and not just some chaotic bullshit that you're trying to live through. So, it's a good time to be in control of the rage you've got. And I get your perspective, but from people who may just be full of rage and just don't know how to properly release that, this is a good time to work on that and have your ancestors and those dark goddesses kind of guide you into being productive with your rage.
I'm laughing because me and the people I'm talking about, we are full of rage. We're very full of rage. We just tend to turn it inward. We tend to turn it on ourselves rather than turn it outward.
But the type of rage I'm talking about, because sometimes I tend to be rageful to everybody and everything within
Yes.
firing range.
Oh, yeah. Same rage, just directed out, not in. I get
Right,
it. Oh, I
right.
get it.
So everybody's got rage. It's just, are you
Yeah.
directing it inward or outward? Let's deal with this.
Because working with these deities really can help you to do that, whichever, whether you're Shell's direction or my direction.
Right.
We have these feelings and they're not wrong. Your emotions are your emotions. Having them is not a
It's just
problem.
how you deal with them.
Yeah, dealing with them is the important part. And working with these goddesses who are unapologetically angry, and some of them are unapologetically do shitty things.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Like working with them doesn't mean you need to do shitty things too. But it does help to look at these stories, to read these stories, to look at them from lots of different angles. Why were they that angry? What can I glean from this? What can I learn about this?
What lessons are here for me?
Yeah, and what healthy ways can I express this rage? By shying away from the parts that we don't like, we're denying ourselves the chance to learn from them. We shouldn't shy away from those ugly parts.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because sometimes it's the ugly parts, like you said. You actually described Baba Yaga as ugly.
She is.
Sometimes we are equal ugly, and it's okay. It's okay.
Exactly. Sometimes Hekate is the young, strong, nubile woman. Sometimes she is the crone with the bent back and the gray hair. All of it is okay and all of it is good. And I think that by shying away from the bones, shying away from the skeleton goddesses, shying away from the Cailleach with her wild hair and her haggard face, these are important deities that have a lot to teach us. And
Shying away isn't healthy either.
no, not at all. And maybe fully embracing it isn't really healthy either.
True, true. Find the balance.
Find the balance, exactly. Find all the balance in these things. All right, so we mentioned at the beginning that we were going to give you a spell to help work with the dark gods and goddesses of the season, to help you channel that righteous rage or anger that you might be feeling in a positive direction. So we will have this on our website, backonthebroomstick.com, in the grimoire section here in the next few days. But the short version is, you can do this on Samhain or any time really. You're going to want 2 candles, a black and a red candle, black for banishing, for embracing your shadows, a red candle for action, for fire, for that anger, bowl of water, and a mirror. And as usual, a journal or pen. And maybe do a little research. Choose a deity, be the Morgan, Hekate, Sekhmet, Lilith, Ereshkigal, Hades, Hell, Santa Muerta. Choose who speaks to you in your blood and your bones. Choose who calls to you. The purpose of this spell is going to be to honor the dark deity within and to have them help you channel anger or rage towards a plan, towards using it effectively. For this spell, you're going to create your sacred space, cast a circle if you choose, put the mirror in front of you and a candle on either side, and place the bowl of water nearby. Light the black candle to honor death and transformation. Light the red candle to call in the fire of passion and change. Take in 3 deep breaths to center yourself, and as you're breathing, start to really feel your emotion. Feel that anger, that rage, that passion. Don't let it consume you, but let it rise to the surface and start to feel it. Place one hand on your heart and really feel that emotion. And start to call to that energy within you. Start to call to those deities that you have chosen. Say something like, I call to those who walk the veil in crowns of bone and flame. Dark mothers, shadowed fathers, come and witness. I call you to me. Teach me to wield what burns within me. Let my rage be righteous. Let my fire be clean. Let my hands do the work that must be done. Speak the names of the deities that you have chosen and give them a moment to speak to you. Feel that energy. While you're holding that space, gaze into the mirror. Look at yourself clearly and without judgment. While gently gazing into the mirror, say out loud the purpose of your working, whether that's rage, whether that's anger, whatever emotion that is, whatever that truth is. Say it out loud. Whatever you have silenced, speak it. Yell it, scream it, rage it. Say it quietly, chant it. However you need to get it out, say it. Once all the words have come out, give yourself a moment, take 3 cleansing breaths, and then gaze between the candles, not into the mirror, but at the flame, at the glow between the candles, directly to deity. Say, I offer you my fury, not to destroy, but to transform. This is the fire that clears away the rot. This is the roar that protects the child. This is the hand that breaks the chain. This is sacred rage, and I am its priestess. Dip your fingers in the water or oil. Use it to mark your third eye, your lips, and your chest above your heart, and say, with water, I cool the burn, but I do not put out the fire. I carry it wisely. I use it well. Then focus that spell, focus the energy that you raised and then tempered by writing it down, what it wants to do and then what it needs to do. Make a plan for using that emotion constructively, whether it's protesting, speaking, writing, teaching, defending, creating, breaking patterns, breaking cycles, naming truths, ending something harmful, beginning something sacred, whatever that needs to be. Write down whatever your rage, your emotion wants you to do, and then write out what it needs to do. Just let it out. As you're writing, just let it go. Just whatever comes, let that torrent of emotion, let that torrent of words, let it go. And then as it cools, start to write your plan. Put it into words. And as you write that plan, picture all of that energy, all of the energy that you raised as you were speaking earlier and also as you were writing, direct that energy to your plan, to your purpose with laser focus. When you are done writing, take 3 deep breaths and say, I own the flame within me. I honor my truth. By the will of the shadowed, by the fire in my spirit, so mote it be. Close the spell, put out the black candle in whatever way you choose, with honor and reverence. Put out the red candle with strength and resolve. Close your circle and make sure to eat, ground, and take care of yourself afterwards. And we'll put up a copy of this in full with all the details on the website backonthebroomstick.com.
I think that all this talk is making me need to go have a conversation with Hekate and my ancestors. I feel like I might have some rage. I need to focus.
Oh, I know I do. This is definitely a rage-filled time of year, that's for sure. So direct it properly. Don't let it burn you. Don't let it burn those you love. Work with it. And maybe find a goddess or a god that can help you channel those emotions rather than stifle them or let them get out of control.
And don't look at this time of year as the heavy lifting time of year. Oh, geez, it's Samhain. I got a lot of work to do now, all this shadow work. Don't look at it that way. Look at this as a time to shut away the bullshit and embrace new change for the new year to come.
I hope you have a very blessed Samhain. Hopefully it's not all darkness and scary things. Hopefully it's reclaiming your power and embrace the dark gods and goddesses within you and be powerful in the shadows.
Be that phoenix that rises from the ashes.
And keep it witchy.